Welcome, gents. Silence is the ultimate weapon of the strong. Life can feel like a battlefield, and the ability to navigate it wisely is what separates the ordinary from the extraordinary. Sigma males are masters of this art, standing out not because they shout the loudest or seek the spotlight, but because they think sharper, move smarter, and act with purpose. They don't just survive, they thrive by outsmarting challenges, turning confusion into clarity and staying 2 steps ahead of anyone who underestimates them. This isn't about being aggressive or manipulative. It's about using intelligence, patience, and calm detachment to protect what matters while keeping your enemies guessing. Sigmas know that real strength isn't in showing off. It's in knowing when and how to act, leaving others wondering how you pulled it off. If you've ever felt like the world tries to box you in or underestimates your power, this video is for you. Watch till the end, because we're uncovering 10 genius ways Sigmas outsmart and confuse their enemies. Stay sharp, stay true, and claim the edge you were born with. And don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. Number 1. Camouflaging intentions. Sigmas are masters of keeping people guessing. They understand the power of not revealing too much, especially when dealing with those who might try to undermine them. By appearing relaxed, disinterested, or even indifferent, they create a layer of unpredictability that throws their enemies completely off balance. To the untrained eye, a Sigma might seem like they aren't paying attention, but in reality, they're observing every detail, every move, and every motive with razor-sharp focus. This isn't about being fake, it's about knowing that showing your cards too soon gives others an advantage. Sigmas refuse to hand anyone that power. They've learned that the less people know about what they're thinking or planning, the harder it becomes for others to manipulate or predict them. This calculated indifference creates a unique kind of confusion. Their enemies are left questioning, doubting, and second-guessing every interaction, unsure if the Sigma is a step ahead or simply uninterested. What makes this even more effective is how effortlessly Sigmas pull it off. They don't need to act mysterious or try hard to hide their thoughts. Their natural self-reliance and calm demeanor make them unreadable, which adds to the confusion. When someone tries to provoke them or dig for information, the Sigma's cool, detached responses can feel like running into a brick wall, frustrating and fruitless. By keeping their true intentions hidden, Sigmas hold the ultimate upper hand. They can strategize, adapt, and strike when the timing is perfect, all while their enemies are busy guessing what's going on. This level of control isn't just about protecting themselves, it's about ensuring they're never caught off guard, always staying 1 step ahead in a world that's constantly looking for weaknesses to exploit. Number 2. Turning obsession into exhaustion. When it comes to dealing with enemies, Sigmas play a game few even realize they're part of. They know that people who view them as threats often become consumed by trying to figure them out. Enemies will analyze their every move, overthink their silence, and waste countless hours trying to decode the Sigma's intentions. But here's the kicker. Sigmas don't give them anything solid to work with. This is where their brilliance lies. Sigmas thrive on keeping their personal lives, motives, and strategies deeply private. They don't broadcast their plans, react impulsively, or show emotional cracks. To their enemies, this lack of information is maddening. It's like trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. The harder their enemies try to dig, the more frustrated and obsessive they become, pouring all their energy into chasing shadows. Meanwhile, the Sigma stays calm, focused, and completely unbothered. This dynamic serves 2 purposes. First, it protects the Sigma from unnecessary conflict. When people don't know what drives you or how you operate, they can't attack you effectively. Second, it flips the power dynamic entirely. While their enemies spiral into exhaustion trying to uncover non-existent weaknesses, the Sigma quietly moves forward, achieving their goals without resistance. The genius of this approach is its simplicity. Sigmas don't need to engage in drama or power struggles. They simply refuse to give those struggles fuel. Their detachment isn't passive, it's deliberate, and it leaves their enemies drained, frustrated, and often questioning their own motives. By the time their enemies realize they've been outplayed, it's too late. The Sigma has already moved on, leaving them stuck in a cycle of their own making. That's the ultimate victory, winning without ever having to fight. Number 3, staying invisible until it matters. Sigmas have an extraordinary ability to stay invisible, blending into the background while quietly observing and strategizing. They're not interested in flaunting their skills or announcing their plans. Instead, they embrace the power of being underestimated. By keeping a low profile, they allow others to assume they're unremarkable or even out of the game altogether. And that's precisely where their strength lies. Enemies often waste time focusing on louder, more obvious targets, dismissing the Sigma as irrelevant. But while others are busy trying to dominate the spotlight, Sigmas are working behind the scenes, analyzing every move, gathering insights, and preparing for the right moment. When the time comes to act, they emerge with precision and purpose, often catching everyone off guard. It's not just about timing, it's about impact. They strike in ways that are so calculated and effective that their enemies are left scrambling, wondering how they missed the signs. This ability to stay invisible until it matters isn't just a strategy, it's a mindset. Sigmas don't crave validation or attention, so they have no need to constantly prove themselves. They're patient, disciplined, and entirely focused on their end goals. This allows them to conserve their energy, avoid unnecessary conflicts, and remain steps ahead of those who thrive on drama or competition. When a Sigma finally steps forward, their actions carry weight because they've been building up to that moment all along. There's no wasted motion, no noise, just results. Enemies find themselves blindsided, realizing too late that the person they overlooked was the one they should have been watching all along. This is how Sigmas turn being underestimated into their greatest advantage, quietly shaping outcomes while everyone else is too distracted to notice. Number 4, emotionally ambushing their opponents. Sigmas thrive on their ability to remain emotionally unreadable, and this trait is a masterstroke in psychological warfare. They don't wear their feelings on their sleeves, nor do they react in predictable ways. This ambiguity is unsettling for their enemies, who are left grasping at straws, trying to anticipate their next move. It's like shadowboxing, swinging at an opponent who refuses to stand still or reveal their position. This emotional ambush is not accidental, it's deliberate and deeply rooted in the Sigma's nature. They understand the power of keeping their emotions guarded, knowing that once someone can predict how you'll react, they can control you. Sigmas refuse to give anyone that leverage. Instead, they maintain a calm, almost stoic exterior that leaves others second-guessing themselves. Is the Sigma indifferent? Are they planning something? Or do they simply not care? The lack of clarity is enough to create confusion and unease, forcing their enemies to overthink and exhaust themselves mentally. What makes this strategy so effective is its simplicity. Sigmas don't need to manipulate or play mind games. They just remain true to their composed, detached nature. This alone is enough to create a constant sense of uncertainty. While their enemies are busy trying to decipher a puzzle with no clear answer, Sigmas remain focused, observing, and always one step ahead. The result? Their opponents are perpetually off balance, never able to mount a solid strategy against someone they can't pin down emotionally. It's a silent, relentless form of control that keeps the Sigma in a position of strength without ever having to lift a finger. By staying unreadable, they ensure that every move they make is a surprise, leaving their enemies caught off guard and unable to keep up. Number 5, using their enemies' strengths against them. Sigmas don't rely on brute force or loud displays of dominance to deal with their enemies. Instead, they play the game smarter, using their opponent's own strengths and weaknesses against them. They understand that arrogance, overconfidence, and assumptions often blind people to their own vulnerabilities, and Sigmas know exactly how to exploit this. They let their enemies dig their own holes, all while staying calm and calculated. When faced with someone who underestimates them, Sigmas don't rush to prove themselves. They allow the enemy's overconfidence to lead the way, knowing it will eventually backfire. Arrogant individuals often believe they have the upper hand, assuming they can predict a Sigma's moves or dominate the interaction. Sigmas, however, stay quiet and observe, noting every flaw in their enemy's approach. They wait for the perfect moment when those weaknesses become too obvious to ignore and then use them to their advantage. This strategy also extends to assumptions. Many enemies misjudge Sigmas, thinking their reserved demeanor signals weakness or lack of interest. But this is precisely what Sigmas count on. They let these assumptions shape their opponent's actions, which often leads to overreach or mistakes. Meanwhile, the Sigma remains 2 steps ahead, prepared to act when the time is right. The brilliance of this approach lies in its efficiency. Sigmas don't waste energy trying to overpower anyone. They let their enemies defeat themselves. It's a subtle yet highly effective way of maintaining control without unnecessary confrontation. By simply observing and adapting, Sigmas turn their opponent's supposed strengths into liabilities, emerging victorious without ever breaking a sweat. It's not just strategy. It's a masterclass in using intelligence and patience to outwit and outlast. Thank you for being a part of this community, gents. Your support means the world to us and inspires us to keep delivering impactful content. We deeply appreciate you. Number 6. Building detours and dead ends. Sigmas are masters of misdirection, and their ability to build detours and dead ends is nothing short of genius. They know that the easiest way to outmaneuver an enemy isn't by direct confrontation, but by making sure their opponents are always looking in the wrong direction. It's not about being deceptive for the sake of it. It's about protecting their true intentions and staying several steps ahead. When Sigmas sense that someone is trying to undermine them, they don't panic or react impulsively. Instead, they calmly construct diversions. They might drop subtle hints that lead their enemies to chase irrelevant goals, or let slip just enough information to create a false sense of understanding. These calculated distractions cause their enemies to waste time and energy pursuing illusions, all while the Sigma is quietly executing their real plan, far away from prying eyes. What makes this strategy so effective is its layered complexity. Sigmas never make their distractions obvious. They weave them so seamlessly into the situation that their enemies don't realize they've been led astray until it's too late. The more their enemies obsess over deciphering the fake trails, the deeper they sink into confusion. And the best part? Sigmas remain calm and composed through it all, never revealing their hand. By the time the truth comes to light, the Sigma's goals are already accomplished, leaving their enemies scrambling to understand what just happened. This approach isn't just about staying ahead, it's about maintaining control. By dictating what their enemies focus on, Sigmas ensure that they're always operating on their own terms. It's a quiet yet devastatingly effective way to stay untouchable while their enemies are caught chasing shadows. Number 7. Absorbing pressure like a sponge. Sigmas possess a rare ability to handle pressure with a level of composure that seems almost unshakable. No matter how much manipulation, intimidation, or stress is thrown their way, they absorb it like a sponge, maintaining their calm and never giving their enemies the satisfaction of an emotional outburst. This unflappable resilience is both their armor and their weapon, as it often leaves their opponents confused and deeply frustrated. Most people crumble or react impulsively under pressure, giving their enemies exactly what they're looking for: weakness, vulnerability, or a misstep to exploit. But Sigmas are wired differently. They don't see pressure as a threat, but as an opportunity to observe and learn. Every attempt to rattle them becomes fuel for their quiet analysis. They study their enemies' tactics, motivations, and weaknesses, all while remaining outwardly unaffected. This ability to stay calm under fire isn't about suppressing emotions, but about mastering them. Sigmas understand that losing control benefits their opponents, so they refuse to hand over that power. By absorbing the tension without breaking, they create a psychological stalemate. Their enemies, expecting a reaction, are left spinning their wheels, unsure of how to proceed against someone who won't play by predictable rules. Over time, this resilience wears down their opponents. It becomes clear that no matter how hard they push, the Sigma won't budge. Instead, the pressure boomerangs back to the enemy, who grows increasingly frustrated and reckless. Meanwhile, the Sigma remains steady, calmly waiting for the perfect moment to act. This approach doesn't just neutralize the enemy, it shifts the balance of power entirely, proving that true strength lies not in avoiding pressure, but in absorbing it without losing yourself. Number 8. Mimicking compliance while strategizing. Sigmas have a knack for playing the long game, and one of their most brilliant tactics is mimicking compliance. They're not afraid to let their enemies think they've won, all while quietly working on a plan that flips the script. By giving the illusion of going along with someone's agenda, Sigmas buy themselves time, gain deeper insight into their opponent's motives, and ensure their ultimate move is not just unexpected, but devastatingly effective. This strategy is not about weakness or submission. It's about patience and precision. Sigmas know that outright defiance can sometimes lead to unnecessary conflicts or tip their hand too early. Instead, they nod along, agree where needed, and even play the part of a cooperative ally. Meanwhile, they're carefully analyzing every word, every move, and every potential vulnerability in their enemy's plan. What makes this approach so powerful is the element of surprise. Enemies often mistake the Sigma's apparent compliance for genuine submission, growing overconfident and dropping their guard. They assume the Sigma is on board or has no counter-strategy, which lulls them into a false sense of security. But beneath the surface, the Sigma is always 2 steps ahead, preparing to upend the entire situation when the moment is right. When Sigmas finally make their move, it's calculated and precise, often leaving their enemies blindsided. They don't just counter the original plan, they dismantle it entirely, exposing its flaws and turning it into their own advantage. This ability to mimic compliance while secretly strategizing isn't just a defensive tactic. It's a masterclass in turning the tables without unnecessary confrontation. It keeps their enemies guessing, ensures the Sigma remains in control, and delivers results that are as shocking as they are effective. Number 9. Disrupting predictability with detachment. Sigmas thrive on a level of emotional detachment that most people find impossible to read. Where others might respond to conflict with anger, fear, or pride, Sigmas strip away all the noise. They approach every situation with a calm, calculated mindset that prioritizes logic over impulse. This ability to remove emotions from the equation doesn't just give them clarity, it completely disrupts the expectations of their enemies, who often rely on emotional cues to gain the upper hand. In a world where people are conditioned to react emotionally, Sigmas stand out by refusing to play that game. They don't lash out when provoked, nor do they crumble under pressure. Instead, they assess the situation with cold precision, analyzing every angle before making a move. This dispassionate approach leaves their enemies at a loss, scrambling to understand how to counter someone who doesn't respond predictably. For many opponents, emotions are their primary tools, manipulating pride to provoke, exploiting anger to distract, or leveraging fear to intimidate. But when they encounter a Sigma, those tactics fall flat. The absence of visible emotional reactions creates a psychological void that confounds enemies. They don't know if they're winning, losing, or even being noticed, and this uncertainty is unnerving. Sigmas' detachment isn't about being unfeeling, it's about controlling what matters. They know that emotions cloud judgment and give their enemies an advantage, so they keep their feelings under wraps until the time is right, or until they no longer serve a purpose. This level of control isn't just a strategy, it's a power move. By refusing to let emotions dictate their actions, Sigmas force their enemies into unfamiliar territory where chaos reigns and only the Sigma remains composed. Number 10. Disarming with unpredictable kindness. Sigmas are known for their ability to keep people guessing, and one of their most effective tools is kindness. Unexpected, strategic, and completely disarming. While most people respond to hostility with either confrontation or avoidance, Sigmas take a different approach. They meet aggression with calm and at times even genuine kindness. But don't mistake this for naivety or weakness. It's a calculated move that flips the script entirely. When someone tries to challenge or undermine them, a Sigma might choose to offer help or extend a gesture of goodwill. It's not about playing nice or turning the other cheek. It's about disrupting the rhythm of conflict. The enemy, expecting resistance or retaliation, is suddenly faced with something they can't easily process: unexpected generosity. This throws them off balance, making them second-guess their own intentions and even feel a twinge of guilt for their actions. What makes this tactic so powerful is its subtlety. A Sigma's kindness isn't over the top or performative. It's quiet and genuine enough to make it impossible to dismiss. This creates a mental tug-of-war for their enemies. Do they continue their hostility and risk looking petty, or do they soften their approach and open themselves to a dynamic they can't control? Either way, the Sigma has already won by taking control of the narrative. This unpredictable kindness also serves a deeper purpose. It shows the Sigma's ability to rise above petty conflicts and operate on their own terms. They don't let anger or ego dictate their actions. Instead, they use emotional intelligence to dismantle negativity at its source. By choosing kindness when it's least expected, Sigmas demonstrate a strength that confuses, humbles, and often neutralizes their enemies entirely. It's not weakness, it's brilliance in action. In wrapping up, in a world where most people are predictable and follow the same patterns, Sigma males stand apart. They don't play by the rules that others expect them to follow. Their ability to stay calm under pressure, absorb manipulation without breaking, and strategically misdirect their enemies is what sets them apart as truly exceptional. Sigmas don't need to react impulsively, because they know the real power lies in controlling the situation with calculated, deliberate moves. They understand that the key to outsmarting their opponents isn't always about direct confrontation. It's about making your next move when your enemies least expect it. You are a Sigma because you know the value of patience, emotional control, and strategic thinking. You refuse to be led by emotions, and you thrive in environments where others get flustered and make mistakes. The tactics we've discussed, camouflaging your intentions, absorbing pressure like a sponge, and using your enemy's strengths against them, are not tricks. They are the ways of someone who's truly in control. This is the mindset that empowers you to stay ahead, no matter the challenge. If you want to understand how to fully harness this mindset and become even more untouchable, don't stop here. Watch the video to uncover more ways Sigmas navigate the world and learn how you can continue outsmarting and confusing those who try to bring you down. Embrace your Sigma nature, because the game is yours to win. Thank you, gents, for tuning in, and God bless.